The next step as CEOs is how do you scale this company and then double it without adding the same number of people that you had in the past? Or you're thinking about other companies growing to the next level. How do you add more capabilities in the business without adding more people? So can you do more with less in post sales? Can you do more with less in go to market? So AI is a critical part of scaling because the next generation companies for everybody in our shoes are going to come with a completely different cost structure than where we are.
In this very interesting conversation with Ram, the CEO of KIBO Commerce, we got into a lot of really cool topics. One being what it's like to be owned by a private equity group that wants you to build a lot of different products, how they're thinking about agentic commerce and really what that means, and how, more importantly than anything else, they're creating value for their merchants. So really excited for you folks to hear this one. Welcome to another episode of the e-commerce toolbox. Joining us today, we have Ram, who's the CEO of KIBO Commerce. KIBO has some really interesting customers like Zwilling, Ace Hardware, Coastal Construction. So really excited to have Ram on the podcast today. Welcome.
Thank you, Killian. Thank you for having me on the podcast.
Awesome. So I'm going to ask you a question that I'm assuming your board and your investors are asking. What's your AI strategy?
Sure. It's what every CEO is thinking about these days, right? So it's actually a multi-pronged story when it comes to AI for us at KIBO. As much as a lot of people started off with AI as a feature, we're kind of thinking about it as a foundational enabler, not only for the commerce experience, but also from a company perspective, right? So I think of it as in three different ways. One is obviously we've introduced a lot of capabilities. We're probably first out of the gates. In March at Shop Talk, we launched our agentic commerce framework and our first agent. And then in May, show at KIBO Connect, we launched our first set of beta customers using the capability. So we call it Engage, Configure, Explain, and Tune. These are 4 types of agents. Engage is a pre-purchase, post-purchase conversational agent that runs on brands' websites. Everything is powered through Google Gemini's model capabilities. The other parts, Configure and Explain, that work inside the platform. So Configure allows people through a conversational approach to configure a promotion or configure an order orchestration rule or anything that you can kind of configure much more easily to do that versus learning 50 clicks. All our platforms are fairly complex, and setting up a promotion is a fairly complex experience there. So Configure allows you to do that. Explain is, we all run into this stuff. Hey, what happened to this specific order? Why did this promotion run? So turn all the logs, turn all the rules back again in a very English-like experience for somebody to say, hey, this order went to this store or this warehouse because of blah, blah, blah reasons. And so the inventory position, so on and so forth, right? And then Tune is basically our approach to really lower the cost of running the platform where the system performs operations on its own. So we're trying to go from this system of record mode where we've had these rules and screens and workflows set up for the system to automatically tune itself. So this is kind of the first kind of product-oriented approach. Obviously, since then, MCP is a big thing on that front. We've launched MCP capabilities in our platform now. So at a product level, it's a little bit more, hey, it's not a feature, it's a core thing in the system. But then the business has evolved significantly. So the next step as CEOs is how do you scale this company and then double it without adding the same number of people that you had in the past? Or you're thinking about other companies growing to the next level. How do you add more capabilities in the business without adding more people? So can you do more with less in post sales? Can you do more with less in go to market? So AI is a critical part of scaling because the next generation companies for everybody in our shoes are going to come with a completely different cost structure than where we are. And the final thing I would say is how do you use AI to deliver innovation faster? So this year we launched a whole dropship platform that sits next to our OMS, very heavily engineered through AI approaches. So I think I have a point of view that I think maybe very focused approach in SaaS companies really thinking I'm going to do 5 things and 5 things very well may go away in the next 2 to 3 years because the cost of writing new software is going down so fantastically quick these days. So I think there's a lot to unpack in the AI world. It's obviously one for our customers that's very important. And how do you lower their cost of ownership? How do you help them scale? But also inside the company, it's got to be a core thing every single day. So when we talk at the board level, those are the things I'm focused on. How do I help my clients and how do I scale faster?
Great answer. And, I skipped the question I usually like to start with. How did you get to your role?
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I am a product and technology guy by training and by background. So started my career as an engineer way back when. I think if I tell you my age, I'd probably date myself. So been in the industry for a long time and lots of different verticals. Commerce is probably a new vertical for me. I've been here probably 7 years. I came to the ranks, worked in lots of different industries, fintech, hospitality, worked in payments before I came here. And then I joined KIBO as the Chief Product and Technology Officer in 2018. And then obviously we went through a divestiture of certain capabilities that we had, personalization. We had acquired companies called Monotate and Satona. When we divested that in late in 2022, the board asked me if I wanted to be the CEO. So obviously first time CEO, like all human beings, we all go through imposter syndromes. There's always doubt in our mind. Can we do this? But I'm one of those people who believes in, when you get an opportunity, take it and then figure it out. So obviously been in this role for now almost 3 years. But I think this is the right time for technology-backed CEOs. The market's evolving so fast, especially with anything that is going to be around agentic. Agentic commerce is just one thing that we talked about. There's lots of things that are evolving and companies are going to evolve. And I feel like I'm the right place at the right time here at KIBO.
That's really cool. And maybe a very KIBO specific question. So we have some mutual customers, but I'm always curious, like, where do you guys think you have kind of the right to win? And what segment of the market do you feel like you're best in?
Yeah, fantastic question. When we think about ideal customer profile, we all have ideal customer profiles in terms of how we think. So maybe I'll, for your audience, tell you a little bit about what KIBO does, right? I think our core value proposition for businesses is to unify their operations, right, across all channels. That's really our core North Star in terms of simplifying complex business models. So we look for businesses that are fairly complicated. So I'm going to define complexity. Everybody defines complexity in different ways. So for us, complexity comes from the notion of lots of inventory locations. So we provide three capabilities in a unified and yet very composable platform: e-commerce, order management, and subscriptions. All of these are core part of the capabilities that we provide. And these are very composable. We're part of the Mark Alliance, so customers can choose to buy bits and pieces of it or all of it, or certain microservices. Some customers may buy just cart and checkout from us, or promising on inventory availability services, so on and so forth, right? So when we think about our ICP, we're looking for complex businesses. So businesses, complexity comes from two or three things: inventory locations, and inventory locations could be stores or warehouses or distribution centers or drop shippers. How they design different inventory locations that they have. The complexity of SKU catalog is an important aspect for us in terms of, hey, how many SKUs do you have? If it's 1,000 SKUs, it probably is too simple for us. We're looking for large businesses, whether it's B2C or B2B, right? We have distributors as part of our customer base. There are large retailers in our customer base as we think about it. And there are some D2C vendors who are also fairly complex in terms of how they think about it. So complexity comes from inventory location, it comes from SKU catalog, and there are certain industries, some hard goods industries, like whether it's home hardware, whether it's medical supplies, whether it's machinery products, those are better suited for us. So those are the things that we focus on. And we get into the market, think from our order management perspective. So being running on the same platform, it's a land and expand strategy for us in terms of go-to-market perspective. We know our core differentiation in this market is through our order management capabilities. But then when customers see that, they also buy our e-commerce capabilities. So customers like Ace Hardware run e-commerce and OMS on KIBO's platform. Customers like Alpha Theme Group in the Middle East, they run on our platforms. There's lots of customers who run more things over a period of time. And so we seriously lowered their total cost of ownership and improved the ROI significantly. Because a lot of this, this, you've been in this space long enough, integrations are a big pain in the rear end in terms of how customers have to maintain these complex ecosystems. We simplify that by providing more capabilities out of the box.
Yeah, it makes sense. And obviously, composable commerce is gaining a lot of traction. But in some cases, there's kind of like, maybe confusion is not the right word, but there's almost like too many choices for merchants. How are you guys thinking about like strategize? Like, what's your strategies to basically offset some of the complexity and actually see that customers don't get overwhelmed and potentially flip to the other direction and say, hey, let's prioritize simplicity?
Yeah, so I think that's one of the key things, right? I think as much as composable is important, decomposable is also equally important. So We've been through this journey. Like I said, I've been in this industry for 7 or 8 years now, and I've seen this wave in the last part of the ATG, WebSphere, commerce space, then to the Salesforce world, then to composable, now in the Shopify space. And then the industry keeps going back and forth in terms of how it thinks about it. And it's largely because the monolithic suites were not composable and they were not decomposable. You had to completely re-platform all of those things from end to end because they provided a lot of capabilities but didn't have the architectural flexibility. And then we went fully composable, and every vendor provided a point solution, and you had to bring all this together. Where we come into the market is we have a lot of capabilities out of the box that clients can buy. And one of the core things is that we've tried to really strive to find that Goldilocks position between business productivity and developer flexibility. A lot of the composable platforms are built for developers. We really strive hard being part of the Mark Alliance. Obviously, we feel really good about our developer flexibility and capabilities in the platform, but also really, really focus on business user productivity. So when we talk to CIOs, we want to meet them at where they are in terms of their, I wouldn't say digital transformation, but their technical skills that they have in the organizations. Clients don't want to become, retailers don't want to become business, B2B distributors and manufacturers don't want to become IT shops to a point where they're building software beyond a certain point. So if they're not in that journey, we offer more out of the box, out of what KIBO does. And then we always give them a choice. Hey, listen, as you evolve and transform yourself, if you want to take certain capabilities out of KIBO, you don't have to re-platform like the old days. You can rip out a piece. You can rip out search from KIBO and put another search platform like Algolia or Constructor. If you want to rip out certain capabilities like our CMS out of the box and you want to use content, full content stack or Amplience or any of those things, you can do that. And so it allows clients to have that choice. And that's why we always talk about composability is important, but decomposability is equally important, right? So that's how we kind of help people to meet them in that journey that they're on.
If you're listening to the e-commerce toolbox, you're entitled to a podcast exclusive website audit. Go to noibu.com/podcast-audit for a free scan that uncovers the hidden friction blocking your conversions and shows you where you're leaking revenue.
So you coming from the product space, how are you thinking about what you build, what you buy, and what you partner to deliver merchant experiences? Yeah, maybe talk to us a bit about like, how do you think of what's core to the business versus what's ancillary, and then how you kind of approach of delivering that experience to the merchants themselves?
Fascinating question, right? So when we think about it, most people think about, hey, KIBO, you're doing so much. You're doing e-commerce, you're doing OMS, you're doing subscriptions. But when you step back and think about it, every e-commerce player has a catalog, a pricing, and a promotion engine capabilities built in. Every OMS vendor has some notions of catalog, pricing, and promotion capabilities built in. A subscription vendor has those things. So there's a tremendous amount of overlap in these capabilities in how SaaS companies like us engineer these solutions, right? So what we did is that, hey, listen, we don't want to think about these as three different solutions. We want to think about it as one set of microservices that we can package and deliver. So if it's in these areas of e-commerce, OMS, and subscription, we will innovate and we will build it to the best of our abilities. When it comes to the front end of the stack, as that is changing pretty dramatically, and as you know, user experiences, especially as you talked about agentic experiences, search is going to be a huge part of it, right? So we don't invest in all of those capabilities. Our search is built on core Solr, but we leverage all the Gemini models to be able to bring in vector search capability. We're not going to build our own LLM engine there or try to even leverage some third-party engines in those capabilities. Where we don't have core competency, in, again, those set of microservices that we talked about, we will go out and partner with somebody to build that. So we did that same thing on the dropship side, right? We don't have EDI capabilities. We partnered with a vendor called Orderful. We embedded that into our platform, and we're going and leveraging those capabilities, right? So again, if those microservices are in the e-commerce, OMS, and subscription space, and we have core skill set, we'll invest in it. Otherwise, we'll partner. Buying is a very dangerous thing at this time right now because we don't know the right technologies that are going to be around or not around. And that's why the point I made today, maybe you can build it faster, leveraging AI approaches rather than buying a company, dealing with all the integration issues that come with it, trying to consolidate the tech stack. And we have gone through all that, right? If you look at our history, we had several companies that we had to go resolve and kind of homogenize and get to where we are today. And I think buying a company and integrating that is going to be a lot more challenge in the future than kind of building them rapidly using AI approaches.
Very interesting. You mentioned your AI kind of agent strategy. You guys are building multiple agents. What are some of the questions that you think your customers should be able to ask and get an answer from these various agents? Like, what are kind of some of the use cases that you see bubble up to the top?
Yeah, so think about it. So the first set of agents we are saying to our clients is, hey, we want to lower the cost of running KIBO, meaning you need to be able to configure the platform. We talked a little bit about business user productivity. So we have lots and lots of admin screens throughout our platform that allows you to configure various types of things in catalog, whether it's a pricing rule, whether it's a promotion rule, whether it's an orchestration rule, whether it's an inventory rule. And so the cost of learning that whole platform, it takes them 6 months to really figure it all out end to end. If somebody deploys all of these services, so the first question people ask me is like, hey, how can I go faster? How can I get to time to value? I think that's the question everybody asks. How can we get to time to value quicker? Can I deploy the solution in 90 days and 120 days? And the answer to that is yes, we can do that. And that's where the agents are really, really helping. So I'll give you an example. You want to set up a promotion rule. I want to apply 10% off to all these green jackets between this date and this date from this brand of these sizes. That is probably you have to set up a lot of capabilities, may take you 15, 20 minutes to set that rule up, ensure it's working, so on and so forth. But couldn't we say that in English? And system configures it by itself. And that's where we are right now. We have the capability right now to actually set that rule up, see that on the screen, say, I like it, save it, maybe make a tweak or change to that rule, and make that rule available very quickly. Now, fast forward that, let's say 4 weeks from now, that rule got applied to an order, and the person seeing that order is not exactly sure why that rule got applied. That's where our explain agents come in. And when the user says, hey, why did this rule get applied, this promotion get applied? The system will go back to the logs, will look at the rule set and come back in an English language to say, this price was so and so because of this reason, right? So those are the types of reasons. And this is across every microservice in the system. There will be configure rules, configure agents, and there will be explain agents. And so those are agents that are running in the platform. Other thing we talked about is what we call engage. That's basically conversational in the front end of the brand site or the B2B distributor manufacturer site, where their shoppers and buyers are engaging that brand through agents that basically can allow them to purchase the product or self-service with them post-purchase.
And the sales agent, not to rename it, but the agent that's customer facing.
Yeah, we call it engage.
Engage, yeah. So it's almost like a salesperson to a degree. That's really interesting. And you're giving the out-of-the-box capability to your customers to actually deliver that?
We're giving that out of the box. And not only that, we also worked with one of the things that we wanted to solve is how do we make this work in a composable world? People may want this engage agent or the sales agent you talked about, but may not have all of KIBO's services running there. So can I make it work with Salesforce's Commerce Cloud? Can I make this work with Sterling's backend system in terms of leveraging the OMS capabilities with maybe our competition out there, but deliver great value for our clients? So that's a big, big approach in terms of our architecture, is that certain agents only work with KIBO's capabilities and services. Some agents can work across and with other platforms services too. So as MCP kicks in and more platforms offer MCP, obviously that orchestration is going to get easier, but we're not there yet. And there are lots of legacy systems that will never get MCP capabilities. So how do you make that work? And so we've figured out ways to train agents based on API calls to be able to orchestrate those experiences on the brand's website through conversation.
Talk to me a bit about how are you seeing from an adoption standpoint? Like, are you seeing internal agents like config and explain get more adoption than customer facing than agents? Maybe curious about the adoption.
Yeah, the adoption is more on the engage side yet, right? Is because they want to improve. Again, there's a lot of pressure in the market. Competition is doing it. We're going through, it almost feels like the first few years of the Web 1.0 age when, getting a brand site up, and I'm old enough to know those days in the late 90s and early 2000s, where people are trying to get this up and running. We're going through the same thing where everybody wants a conversational agent. So we're seeing a little more demand in that area versus, hey, I want to leverage, configure, and explain. But I think all that is coming as more and more people start leveraging these capabilities. People are focused on how do I increase the top line? And that's really a positive thing when you can have a conversation on a website with an agent. And it's amazing to see these experiences and what these LLMs can generate in terms of capabilities to upsell, to cross-sell, all the things that we're used to through recommendation engines and things like that in the past. But those experiences are so much more natural through a conversation versus having to do that, click 10 links and then find the right product.
Are you concerned about in GPT transactions? Like basically people are going to be in an LLM, whether it's Google Gemini, ChatGPT, or Claude, and they're actually just going to complete a transaction from A to B through there and cutting out part of the platform effectively?
See, I don't feel that is going to cut the platform out because I think this has happened. Google have figured it out. We've been all giving catalogs to Google for 15 years. Most of our clients give a Google feed, a catalog feed, a pricing feed, an inventory feed to Google. Google has tried Google Shopping for many, 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 many years, and it's never worked. And there's 2 or 3 challenges, I think, in my point of view. I think we're using a baseball analogy, we're probably at the bottom of the first right now. It's still too early to really worry about that. Largely, I would say is that all of these retailers have very complex pricing mechanisms and promotion mechanisms. Unless OpenAI is willing to build a full commerce platform, they're going to have to come back through an MCP server into the commerce platform to be able to leverage all of those capabilities. So I can think of this as another headless client that sits on top of commerce platforms, APIs, and MCP servers. And I think that's definitely going to happen. But I don't know whether they can cut out the commerce platforms fully because there is so much complexity in all of these things that each of these businesses have a unique differentiation. And the differentiation is in these business rules that they have that are exposed as APIs. And I think they're going to have to come back to the commerce services, especially on the back-end side of things. Now, search, I think that probably is going to get really commoditized because these agents will be able to do that. But then until OpenAI and Claude and Gemini will probably the easiest, can figure out a way to put ads. If I'm Ace Hardware and I'm Home Depot, let's take the same examples. How is that grill that Ace sells going to show up higher than the one that Home Depot sells, right? I mean, there's going to have to be some market where they bid on it. So my hypothesis is OpenAI is going to have to build a ad-based platform, and it's going to become in some shape or form a story that looks similar to Google over a period of time. I mean, Google makes, I don't know, $270 billion the last time I looked at it. In ads business, I don't know how many people it's going to take to buy $20 a month to get to that revenue. They're going to have to pump into ads, or this is not going to be a business model over a period of time. That's one more point. One more point is, I think from a brand perspective, they're going to pay OpenAI a piece of the transaction. They're going to pay the payment provider a piece of transaction, and they're going to pay the commerce platform a piece of transaction. So at some point, the shopper is going to be smart enough to say, hey, if I go to the brand's website, I don't have to pay OpenAI anything. So there's got to be some interesting commercial things to figure out here and how they monetize it.
I agree. And I think this is very similar to like the Amazon situation. Amazon is 37-ish% of retail sales. Like I look at this as kind of the marketplace theory, right? There's probably a cap on marketplace, if that makes sense. And it's not going to be 100%. I think actually Amazon potentially is at risk in this context because it's kind of the value of Amazon through a tool, and that could potentially inch it up to 50% of global sales. Who knows? But to your point, it's probably never going to be 100. Well, this has been phenomenal, Ram. I really appreciate you hopping on the show. This was super awesome. I hope you don't mind that we went too long on AI.
That's okay. Really enjoyed talking about it.
If we were chatting about anything else, I don't know if we'd be doing the right thing. So I appreciate you taking the time, and thanks again.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
The e-commerce toolbox Expert Perspectives is brought to you by Noibu. To find out more about Noibu and how we can help you debug your e-commerce site and rocket your revenue, visit www.noibu.com. That's Noibu.com. And then make sure to search for the e-commerce toolbox Expert Perspectives on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else podcasts are found, and click subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at Noibu, thanks for listening.